Now for a 12 News Legal Deep Dive, where we take a look at some of the biggest legal cases making headlines in Arizona and across the country. And a big national case affecting millions, the U.S. ban on TikTok. In 3 days, TikTok plans to shut down its app nationwide unless the U.S. Supreme Court intervenes. So, how did we get here? Let's go back to 2020 when then President Donald Trump denounced TikTok as a threat to America's national security. Fast forward to April 2024, a law passed with bipartisan support and signed by President Biden called for TikTok's parent company ByteDance to sell by January 19th, 2025, which is this Sunday, or face a ban in the U.S. because of its risk to national security and free speech. Then, in December, Trump's legal team filed a brief asking for a postponement to allow his incoming administration to address the national security concerns through political negotiations rather than an outright ban. And then just last Friday, federal lawmakers argued before the U.S. Supreme Court that the ban was necessary to safeguard sensitive data. Now, on the flip side, all along, TikTok's legal team has argued it violates First Amendment rights and it fails to provide sufficient evidence. So criminal defense attorney Hector Diaz of Diaz Law is here. Hector, what do you think will happen? I mean, will the U.S. Supreme Court actually make a decision before Sunday, or will TikTok go dark?
I don't see the Supreme Court issuing a ruling before Sunday, and I also don't think it's going to go dark.
Oh.
I think what the Supreme Court could do, there's a little bit of a wrinkle. The Supreme Court could issue what's called a temporary injunction saying, we're still going through our kind of decision process here. We want to review some things. In the interim, we're going to issue a temporary injunction. We're going to hold off on the enforceability of the ban. That could happen.
Okay.
Still unlikely.
Yeah.
I had a chance to kind of review some of the arguments, and the Supreme Court really didn't take a lot of credit into the idea of this First Amendment. They really emphasized that this was a viable national security issue.
Okay.
So, there are some things that I think TikTok, if I was representing TikTok.
Right. You're general counsel.
I'm general counsel. One of the things I'm going to really impress on TikTok right now is let's just lay low for the time being, right? We have a new administration that comes in on Monday.
Right. The day after the ban. Yeah.
We're not going to push out any updates on our app. We're not going to any kind of bug fixes. We're going to lay low. We're not going to do anything.
Okay.
And so, and the hope is that, and I'm assuming there have been some behind-the-scene communications with TikTok officials and the incoming Department of Justice administration, and they're talking about, are you guys going to enforce this if we, if we're there?
Right.
We're not going to go dark completely, but if we're there,
yeah.
All right, what's going to happen? And I think they've probably been given some assurances by the Department of Justice, the incoming Department of Justice, that they will give some kind of period to see if we can negotiate a sale.
A compromise or something like that,
right.
yeah.
I think Trump, ultimately, I mean, he's said certain things in terms of, favoring TikTok and gave it a bit of kudos, but I think in the end, he understands that this is likely to be sold. That's probably the push here, to be sold to an American company that can run it without that parent Chinese company connection.
Yeah, that national security risk.
Absolutely. And I mean, can we all say Elon? This is,
yeah.
This seems like it makes sense.
There's rumors, right. So this is interesting. I mean, obviously, besides upsetting the 170 million users of TikTok, what kind of legal ramifications do you think that this will have?
There might be those influencers, right, that are really dependent on TikTok. I know, my wife is a huge TikTok fan.
Oh, okay.
All the time. And there's, this algorithm that is amazing, that just really sets the bar in terms of this, of really showing you what you're interested in, et cetera, et cetera. But I could see a situation here where ultimately, it's there are going to be these lawsuits, but at the end of the day, I don't think they go anywhere.
Right.
I think, you're going to have the Meta and the Instagrams that are going to sit there and just wait for more users to come along.
Yeah, they're kind of salivating, like,
right.
Come to us, right? Speaking of which, there's a lot of people who are flooding what's called Red Note. That's apparently China's version of TikTok. So do you think that could possibly be a next banned target?
And I'm still here thinking Facebook is cool. So
Me too.
This is the first time hearing of Red Note. I did look into it. In fact, they have the same parent Chinese connection.
Right.
It would face the same issue if the ban's enforced.
Okay. All right. Hector, I know we're going to hit a couple more cases, so stay with us. Thank you so much. But right now, let's toss it over to Lindsay with our weather impact forecast. Lindsay.